Welcome to Film Recaps, the channel dedicated to bringing you the highlights of your favorite movies. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below if you'd like us to continue creating these videos. The film starts as Eloise Turner is dancing in her room. She's an aspiring fashion designer who lives with her grandpetty and has been mourning the death of her mother, who appears to Ellie in mirror reflections at times. Peggy shows Ellie a letter she has received informing her she has been accepted into a fashion school in London. Ellie is excited, but Peggy warns her that there are bad men up where she is going. Ellie takes the train to London and is driven to her room. The cab driver makes creepy comments to Ellie, so she gets off at a shop and waits for the man to leave so she can keep walking to her room. She gets there and meets her roommate Jocasta. Ellie goes up with Jocasta and her friends, where it is revealed that Ellie's mother died by suicide after a struggle with mental illness. While in the bathroom, Ellie overhears Jocasta talking trash about her to the other girls. Ellie leaves the pub and walks back to her room, spotting an older man looking her way and smirking. Jocasta later brings it back to her room to hook up with while Ellie tries to sleep. She leaves her room and finds a party going on outside. The only student to befriend her is a young man named John. The next morning, Ellie wakes up late and runs to class where she makes it on time for attendance. Ellie decides to find a place of her own for peace of mind. She finds a room in a home kept by a woman named Miss Collins. She gives Ellie a set of rules to follow and allows her to stay in the bedroom upstairs. Ellie likes the place and rests for the night, sleeping all the way under the covers. When Ellie gets out of bed, she finds herself somehow in the 1960s. She walks into a venue called Café de Paris and sees her reflection as another young woman named Sandy. Ellie follows Sandy as though she is there watching everything unfold. Sandy wants to be a singer at the venue but is met with unwanted attention by a surly patron. She is told to speak to a man named Jack about being a singer. Sandy meets Jack and is charmed by him. He starts to leave with her when the patron makes rude comments. Jack punches him in the face and runs away with Sandy, kissing her in a phone booth, which is reflected as also happening with Ellie. As Ellie keeps moving, she finds Sandy in her bed, but when she tries to touch her, she wakes up back in the present. At school, Ellie becomes inspired to create a design based on what she saw Sandy wearing. Jocasta notes a hickey on Ellie's neck from where Jack had been kissing her. Later that night, Ellie goes back to sleep hoping to wake up in the 60s again. She finds herself as Sandy and Jack get closer, and he brings Sandy to meet the owner of a different venue, the Rialto, so that she can sing for him, performing the song downtown. The men note that she can definitely sing. Ellie dyes her hair blonde like Sandy's and continues to work on her dress design, which her teacher seems to like, while Jocasta just mocks her out of pettiness. Ellie later sees the venue where she saw Sandy perform as it appears in the present day. She then goes to a pub to ask for a job. As she heads back to her room, the old man who saw her from the other night follows her and claims to recognize her because of her hair, but he insists he is not trying to pick her up. Ellie returns to the 60s and goes to the Rialto but finds Sandy is now performing as part of a group of skimpy-dressed women dancing as backup for a woman performing as a marionette. As Ellie follows Sandy around a little more, she sees that Jack is more abusive and is telling her that she has to make certain men happy if she wants to make it in the music business. Ellie sees Sandy in the bedroom as a lecherous man approaches her with his pants off. Ellie screams at the man to not touch Sandy, and he appears to hear her, but Ellie wakes up. The experience causes Ellie to rip up the pink dress design she originally drew in class. Ellie continues to get through work and school. In her next trip to the 60s, she sees that Sandy is becoming more jaded and unhappy as Jack forced her into prostitution and she must service a barrage of horrible men, while she also develops a drug and alcohol problem. She uses fake names like Alex, Lexi, or Anna. Only one man does not take advantage of her and is polite and charming to her. Sandy talks down about herself while Ellie tries to get her attention through the mirror. She manages to smash through the glass and grab Sandy, but she wakes up. John sees that Ellie is looking a bit unwell, so he invites her out to a Halloween party. Jocasta and her friends see them together and give them drinks. They all start dancing, but in the middle of things, Ellie hallucinates seeing ghoulish visions of the men who took advantage of Sandy, as well as Sandy herself dancing alone. John takes Ellie home when he sees her looking bad. They start to kiss and go to her room for sex, but Ellie looks up and sees the ceiling mirror showing Jack attacking Sandy. Ellie starts yelling at him to get off her. She then appears to see Jack stabbing Sandy to death. Miss Collins overhears the noise and orders John to leave, as one of her roles is not having male visitors. She simply tells Ellie to go to bed. The next day, Ellie apologizes to Miss Collins about what happened. She asks her if anyone died in her room, but Miss Collins is dodgy about it. Later, Ellie goes to the library to look up murders in the 60s. She begins to hallucinate the ghost men following her around the library, nearly leading her to stab Jocasta in the face with a pair of scissors. John runs after Jocasta to explain things while Ellie leaves in a panic. She runs to the police station to report the murder, now believing that the old man is Jack and that he got away with killing Sandy, but the detectives know she is low to go off of. Ellie arrives late for work and finds that the old man is waiting for her. She takes out her phone to try and record a confession out of him, but when she brings up Sandy, the man says Alex killed Sandy and that whatever happened to her was something she got herself into. Ellie runs after the man, but he gets hit by a car on the street and dies. Ellie's boss tells someone to call for help and say he's a former cop named Lindsay. Ellie realizes the man is not Jack, but rather the gentleman who was polite with her and didn't sleep with her. Ellie returns home and makes plans to return home with her grandmother. Miss Collins gives Ellie tea in her mail. One letter is addressed to Miss Collins, revealing her name to be Alexandra, which is what Sandy told Jack her name was short for. Miss Collins reveals that someone did die in Ellie's room, her. She was Sandy. After enduring all the abuse in her life, she led her life as Sandy died when she stabbed Jack to death. She later got revenge on all the men who abused her by murdering them. Miss Collins then reveals that she poisoned Ellie's tea and will make it look like a suicide. John then comes looking for Ellie, who regains enough strength to warn John to run. Miss Collins stabs him while Ellie tries to run upstairs, seeing the younger Sandy attacking her. Downstairs, a fire starts and begins spreading. Ellie locks herself in her room where the spirits of Sandy's victims break through the floors and walls, begging Ellie to kill Miss Collins. When she finally breaks in, she sees her reflection as Sandy and realizes she has become just as much of a monster as the man who murdered her. She tries to slit her throat, but Ellie stops her and tries to help her. Miss Collins chooses to stay and die in the fire while letting Ellie go. Ellie gets John out of there as medics arrive, and Miss Collins allows the flames to consume her. Sometime later, Ellie presents her work in a fashion show with Peggy and John in attendance to cheer her on along with the rest of the audience. Her teacher congratulates her, as do the other girls, and she once again sees her mother's reflection smiling at her. As Katie and John come to congratulate her, Ellie sees Sandy's reflection in the mirror waving at her.